Hello, gach duine chunastá sibse, so athlean faoi washa díobse, so Happy New Year, and I hope you all had a lovely Christmas. I'm going to apologize now for my voice. I recovering from a head cold, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. So apologies, and I have a really barky cough as well, so I may have to mute myself now and again in case I have a coughing fit. So apologies, but hopefully you're well, and obviously back to school. So, or maybe not, because I know there was some snow days, in different parts of the country. So hopefully all is good and studying went okay over the Christmas break. I'll kind of touch base with you all about that now before we get into today's lesson. Obviously just even having a look at kind of your mock exams, like when they're starting. I have them written down here. So obviously there's a few Colony that are coming up at the end of the month, and then a few of the other girls then at in kind of start mid-Feb. So, like we're talking, some people are like it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks away, some people it's 6 weeks away. So, it is, I suppose, kind of like crunch time, right? So you're at a difficult stage now because it's like I'm going to start, you will see from today now, there is a bit of like coursework in today as well, but there is a heavy emphasis on the oral, and you kind of will see that, kind of really kind of, I suppose, heavily sprinkled throughout the next couple of weeks. But that is because where, the oral is in 13 weeks. And, it's very hard now to try and like divide your time between getting ready for the mocks and getting ready for the oral, right? So, what I would say to you is try and just be realistic about it. Like, obviously, we want to go into the mocks and do the best that we can. But like it may just be a thing, like, and I'm only talking about Irish here. It may just be a thing that you mightn't know everything to the standard that you want to know it, and that's okay for your mock. Okay, it really is more of a timing exercise, just to kind of see how you would cope with all the different sections in the certain time frame. Um, so, like, that's kind of what I want you to think about, right? So, even if you want to make a note, 13 weeks till the oral, okay? Obviously, mocks are in, like, for some people, like I said, 4 to 6 weeks, which is kind of halfway to the oral time. How are we going to manage that? How are we going to manage our studying? How are we going to manage our time? Um, and if anyone wants to talk to me about that themselves, you can just let me know, okay? Like if anyone's kind of struggling, I can kind of guide you into what you need to be focusing on, okay? Or feel free to ask a question this evening if you wish. Okay, so before we do the check-in, okay, we're going to do our briefer Shannock agus na cancha as we always do every lesson. So our briefer nua an tacht seo. So Bartig, okay? So Bartig is the same as Suckrig. I'll just write Suckrig here in the chat. Okay, so they mean the exact same thing. You don't need to know both of them, but just so you're aware. Doughy then is to burn. So again, this is kind of maybe a verb that you may not use, but like at the same time, you never know, like with trap doors where you could use it, or I suppose just even for your own sake, like if you were describing something. So obviously that's the verb used at the beginning of a sentence, but if you want to say like it was burnt, say, you would say Vishe Dotze. So looks a little bit different. Okay, Vishe Dotze. And I've just wrote that there in the Zoom chat box. And then glee, right? So obviously means to pray. Again, we may not use it that much, but it can also mean to wish for. Okay, so again, that is something that we might use in context, whether it's, wishing to go on a holiday in the summer, wishing for a certain college course, So again, it's kind of like an out there verb, a verb we wouldn't see used very often. So the seanachal an tachtain seo nuair a bhíonn an cat amwe being luck ag rinka. So when the cat's away, the mice will dance. When the cat's away, the mice will play, we would normally say. I think this is a good one for the Shrap Pictors. The Shrap Pictors is a lot about in a day agree they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, okay? So Again, you could use it there, or even just sail on Dagora, like Life of a Teenager. It's a very common topic that comes up in the oral. You could use it there either. Nahana Kancha then I Brabant na Sul, so in the blink of an eye. Again, it's kind of like your Erwan Vela Gothuban. It's just another one of those that you can use. I think it'd be a really good one to use for a Shrap Pictor, especially, okay, because it's kind of that got that descriptive element to it. All right. So how did we get on over Christmas break? I just want to check in with you all now. And I suppose how are you feeling about the mocks? And do you have any questions for me? I suppose in relation to Gockrot, in relation to everything, or even just how are you feeling about the oral? Have we started doing our notey? Kind of where are we at with that? And what I will say just while you're writing there, like with the oral, okay, like it's so, no, I won't say so easy, but it is totally doable to get like next to full marks in the oral, okay? If you do what I tell you to do, and like it goes your way on the day, like I last year I had like 5 or 6 students who got like 235 out of 240. And they were just normal students. They weren't Gaeilgeoirs, nothing like that. But they just went in and they played the game. They used their verbs. They used their Nahna Kancha. They had their different verbs in their Shrap Pictor. So don't overthink the oral. If you just stick to the basics and you do the basics really, really well, you can do really, really well in your oral. So first question here, how many essays should we learn for the mock? Like, it depends on time and really. Like, I would say if you had two under your belt, that's really, really good. Or what you could do as well is you could, Amy, like learn one that kind of covers loads of different elements. So like you could learn, a little bit of course like depending on what ones you're going to do. Um Actually that's a good question. What essays are people doing for the mocks? I suppose because we're all in different schools, so it might be a good one actually to discuss. And also, Becky, I know you're new. You're very welcome to the class. So you're probably like, how are these all writing in this? If you log on to the Google Drive, I would have added you to that yesterday. If you log on to the Google Drive and you go into the weekly document, okay, you will gain access to this and you'll be able to type. But if you can't do that this evening for whatever reason, you can also just write in Zoom chat because I can see it all there as well. Okay, Ella, so about pronunciation, that's a very valid worry. We will do a mock oral, okay, so I can help you with that. And also, now not this week, so there's no homework this week because I just like to get, obviously just free to settle back into school. But like you'll be getting homework where you'll have to practice your pronunciation, so don't worry, we'll kind of cover that as well. So Gaelga on Timpalocht. Yeah, maybe like three would, because I would be saying to you three max four for the real thing. So I don't know, like, and with your mocks being so soon, I don't think you're going to have time, and I don't think you need to. Like, obviously, we don't know what's on the mock. I don't know what's on the mock, but I would be hoping if you had Course Hickus and Gaelga, one of them should be there. And if it comes up like, big stories today, you could talk about the education system being a story and you could talk about Gaelga. So, you're kind of covered there. Um, Timpalook you could see come up in the mock, because they can be kind of random like that, where they might put up like Timpaloft, even though it came up last year, but you could see something like that. But then I'm like, oh, is it going to come up in the real thing this year? So it's like, is it worth learning it? No, so Ella, you're on about their pronunciation. No, so like obviously you being from Donegal, I think, you obviously would pronounce words differently to I would. So if I was your examiner, I can't dock you marks because you say words differently to me. I, as an examiner, will understand that you use a different dialect. And you might, even your teacher might use a different dialect, and maybe you started, using their dialect or whatever. So no, don't worry about that. Or like even using different words, like nomade, but in Donegal they would say bomata. So, like different things like that, your examiner will have all that kind of, that'll be sorted. Okay, so yeah, kind of what Kira has done, I think if you're running out of time would probably be a good idea. So Kira's saying she's just wrote an Ashta and scale tomorrow. So Kira, I'm presuming now maybe I picked that up wrong. Have you included like Gaelga, Corsica, Sláinte in that essay? Yeah, so I think that's a good idea. Like if you were really stuck for time, like to be honest, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be trying to do a little bit because realistically then if Corsicus comes up, you'll have enough probably to write about it. And when you're, stuck for time, I think that's the best way of kind of seeing where you're going to land with the mock and then obviously being able to answer all the other sections as well. So I've answered that. Education system, yeah. Like I think course educus is a good one. So we're actually going to have uh going over the Gaeilge one, good Leah. So I'm actually going to go over the Buchtanacht essay today, right? So obviously we've looked at course educus, we've looked at Gaeilge. I'm going to look at Buchtanacht today, okay? And then obviously down the road in a couple of weeks time I will show you then like how we could like use all these different topics together in like an all-in-one essay. And that's kind of to be used if you completely run out of time. Like some people just go in with one essay and it has a little bit of everything. Now that works perfectly if you get a kind of all-in-one or a little bit of everything title. It's a little bit more tricky if you don't get one of them. But I think it's better to be have broad than be too narrow when it comes to the essay. Okay, so and obviously if people have any more questions, please just like write them in Zoom chat where they'll pop up straight away for me. So the Screwdo concept, we've done little bits of it, but we haven't really focused too much on it. We've been trying to get all the paperwork done. Okay, and like I said, we will be dipping in and out of paperwork um as the weeks go on. It's not just going to be sole oral. Probably after midterm though, it will be. It will be just oral work. Right, so there's 13 weeks left till the oral. Okay, Easter is early, so that means the oral is right around the corner. So I'm just going to talk you through today, like the layout of the oral. Okay. As an examiner, I hope to examine myself this year and go back out on the road and do them. So obviously, if anything new comes up at the conferences, which they normally don't, I will be able to let you know. So the beauty of the oral is what a lot of students don't realize is 50% of the marks for the oral are going for Cummersage, your ability to communicate with the examiner. So even if you are saying like you're using the wrong tense or the wrong verb, or like or you're basically grammatically incorrect, but I can understand what you're saying and you're answering the question correctly, as in, like, you've understood what I've said to you and you're trying to give a reply. I have to give you marks for that. So, yes, I don't give you marks on the grammar side of things, but I do give you marks on the communication side of things. Okay. So, that's really important to know. So, even if you're like not 100% sure on my tenses, not 100% sure on, like what verb I should use, but you're like, I know what the examiner is saying to me and I'm going to like just go for it. I think this is the right verb or I think this is the right tense. I'm just going to go for it. You are still going to get marks for that. Okay, so the more confident you can be and the more willing to have the conversation with the examiner, the more marks you're going to get. So, like, effort is rewarded in the oral, where like effort isn't rewarded in the essay because it's all about accuracy. So, that's why we really want you to try and get as many marks in the oral as possible because it's kind of the fairest part of the exam because it's also common level because higher and ordinary are treated the same. Okay, so the first thing that's going to happen when you go in there, obviously you'll have to sign the roll. Okay, so she'll just, or she or he will say, is this your name? Is this your date of birth? Okay, Sheeny on Rulla. Sign the roll. The minute it starts, okay, they're going to ask you these five questions. Now, they should be in this order. I have heard like that they're not. And one person actually last year in my school, like they went and they did like the poem first and then they did the five questions afterwards. Anyways, they shouldn't have done that. That's like, I'd say the examiner just forgot themselves, but like this should be the layout. Okay, this is always the layout. So these are always the five questions, they never change, and you get a mark per question. Okay, so before I do anything else, I'm just going to get you to answer those five questions in your box now. Okay, just answer those five questions. And again, don't worry too much about spelling or that because obviously it's a spoken. And I'm going to tell you how you get these five marks because it's not as easy as you may think. So obviously, if you don't have your exam number yet, don't worry. But just to note with the exam number, so you just say it like, so say it was like 155672. You just say a cuig, a she, a cuig, a shocked, whatever I said there. Okay, don't worry too much about that. I'm just looking at your dates of birth, just because they can catch people. So Amy, the 8th of October. Darlaw Dig. So the 12th of um May for May of Ella. The 11th, is that what you're trying to say? So the 11th So it'd be Rugu me ar an Tenu law. Oh, the 21st. Yeah, sorry. So it'd be Rugu me ar an Tenu law is fiha. So Rugu me ar an Tenu law is fiha. Yeah, so after law is fiha. So you would get rid of the jig then of September. Okay, perfect. Carhulo dig, so May Vela, so 14th of April. Octulo, so the 8th of March. Yeah. For Leah, 8th of March. Octulo, joel me. De bhí vorta, Octulo, yeah. Cahru, so LOD, 4th of March. Carol, so rugame ar an Cahru law de bhí vorta or de vorta. Yeah, Cahru, just don't forget law. So Becky, 30th of August. Rugby mé ar an céad lá de bhí fiabhra, so the 1st of Feb, and sé lá is fed the 26th of May. Okay, good. Right, that's all fine. Okay, chunde sligi, yeah, chunde hunanál, baile dunanál, yeah, farfa. Oh, 18th, right. So rugby mé ar an octú lá déag, just add déag lia after law. Okay, and we have our exam numbers. So say like here, this one, 349329. So that you would just say is a three, a cahar, a knee, a three, a do, a knee, mashcrúdiver. And you can have your exam number written down, like you can have it on your hand if you want, but you can write it on your booklet, your Leibna Filiochta booklet, and then just read it out. Okay. So right. There are some people who don't score 5 out of 5. Higher level students that don't score 5 out of 5. Why do they not score 5 out of 5? So the rules are, for which we have been given by the department, is as follows. So when you are asked Cadasan and Ditch, now you all would, well, not all of you, wouldn't I couldn't give some of you the mark because you didn't say your full name. So if I just said Daniela Sanam Dum, they can't give me the mark. I have to say my full name. Now, my full name does not need to be in Irish, but obviously it's a nice touch if you can. Some surnames can't be translated into Irish, that's absolutely fine. Don't even try to. Okay? So like for example, if I said Danielle O'Connell Sanam Dum, I would get the mark. If I said Danielle Ní Chonal Sanam Dum, I would still get the mark. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, what age are you? So this is self-explanatory. Like just I suppose to get your age right, like for the full mark, we would be saying, Tom Shacht Mlina Zeg Dish. I really do need to hear that Eru. So if you're Shacht Ocht no Ni, okay? Mlina Zeg, Ocht Mlina Zeg, Shacht Mlina Zeg. Okay. I don't presume nobody's 16 doing the leaving. So you're going to have to we're going to have to hear that Eru. Okay. Then the next, so what I would say is with these 5 questions as well, what we can see sometimes happen is students, and it's a kind of a nerves thing that they go into like, oh, Tom Schachtlin is egg the Rugame Aaron, and they go into this spiel, right? But these are just like one sentence answers. So you wait then for them to say, Cade the Hota Breha, what is your date of birth? So Rugame air on, just remember to say the year. So like for example, like Rugame air on Cahrulo de Vivort on the 4th of March, right? But you don't say the year, I can't give you the mark. Okay. So go Vila. What are people now? What year are we in? Okay, 07, 08 better. So Govilis Shacht, Govilis Hocht, okay, or Govilis Shay if some people are. So that's that. Just remember the year. Cade the Hiola Bala. So just be careful of that. That's just what is your address, okay? Now, they may say Cowell to the Honey, but if they don't, I've caught some students out with that sometimes. Cade the Hiola Bala. And they're kind of looking at me, and then I would say, oh, well, Cowell to the Honey. So for me to give you the mark here, right, I need 2 lines of an address. So for example, like Toma Mahoney, Malyu Dolly, Chunde Schliggy. Okay, so I need like the townland and the town. Okay. Like you could, if you want to say, like if I lived in an estate, I could say like Thumim Mahoney, Ivor Tree, Ryer Knamara, Schligach, right? But like usually it would just be the townland and the town. Okay. So again, it's totally preference, but we just need two lines. You can give three or four lines if you want. But usually it has to be a minimum of two lines. And then your exam number is your exam number. Okay. Just remember to say it like just you're just rhyming off the numbers in single digits. Okay. You don't need to say like 3,400 or whatever. Okay, so now, you're leaving a filiochta, right? So, what you need to remember, because some teachers don't realise this, is with your leaving a filiochta, so the five poems that are on your course, you will have to say one of them, and it will be picked by the examiner, okay? Now, the beauty of this is, though, that you can bring in these poems into the exam. Right? So, like, I would probably have a booklet on the drive, but say, right, so I've printed off my booklet, okay? So say like on the front page, I might just like now the way I would do it in my school is like I print the school crest and I have like their name and their exam number on it, right? And then you have the five poems on separate pages. So you don't need to be going to that effort. But what I would do is I would print the five poems on separate pages, okay? And then you can write the phonetics. Okay. So for example, Gavin le Kathleen Maud. Okay. Gavin, right? I can write that over or beside it if I want. So they say this was my sheet of paper. Okay. I could write like this. Le Kathleen. Okay. Maud. Right. Say if I struggled to say that. Then I can go down here. So like Anne V. May. Anne V. Alta. Well, you get the idea, right? And the Alta. So the beauty of this is phonetics are Alta, right? Or Alta. You're going to write your phonetics differently. So like what I mean by phonetics is you write the word how you hear it. Okay, so you write it phonetically. I would have said this to you about the with the Clustishkins, like you can write words phonetically, and if I can understand what you're saying and it correlates to the marking scheme, I can give you the mark. So you can write the phonetics, okay? You can even be like, you could even write beside it, like the first verse of Gavin is like a happy verse. And then the second verse, or the from Achanish, it kind of gets sad because now he's in captivity. You can change the tone of your voice. There is marks going for that, okay? So, things like that a like happy face, sad face. This can all be written on the sheet and it's worth 35 marks. So it's a really easy 35 marks that you can get, okay? So what I would say to you is please, please, please don't forget to bring in the little booklet on the day of the oral. Because if you forget it, okay, your examiner will just give you a blank one. Okay. And look, I've seen it before where people have borrowed other people's and used their phonetics, which might work for some people, but like it kind of begs, what I'm saying is people write phonetics differently, which means you might pronounce it differently to how that person who's wrote the phonetics would. So just kind of make sure to bring your own if you can. Okay. So we're going to have a look at Gavin today. So all I want to do is like if you have Gavin written out somewhere, or even if you just want to grab a sheet and write the phonetics of it, and then you can like write them in properly another time during study. So now again, I'm a little bit nasally today, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me and hopefully it will make sense. If there is any words that maybe you didn't hear properly or you want me to say again, you can just like send me a message or unmute yourself if you want. Okay, so Gavin le Kathleen Maud. And please, please, please don't forget you need to say the title and who wrote it. Really, really important. Okay. Anne V. May and the Alta. Os na cho chrasa. Now that's a hard word. Cho crasa. Cho crasa. Os na cho crasa. A will clue agus call mo scéimh. So like cave, but with a scéimh, near like a K sound. So I'll just say those last two lines there. A will clue agus call mo scéimh. Okay, next little piece. Now, this is a bit of a mouthful, this line. Crihin, crancha, na quilla. Okay, I'm just going to say that again. Crihin, crancha, na quilla. Thraw, so silent TH there. Thraw, lemogar. So like car, but gar, lemogar. Okay, so they're the two like happy verses. So like carefree, happy out in the wild. Okay, so the tone would change then slightly from ach and ish. So ach and ish, ach. So if we can hear that, we call those guttural sounds as Gaeilge. They are hard to do when you're not used to doing them, but I would advise you to practice. Ach and ish, Liam Shees, agus bra nium. So that word there. Brathnium agus brathnium trí lethúil. Now you can also say lahúil, lahúil, okay? An grán, so an grán, Éanric, sin howell. An grán Éanric sin howl. You can say for that one as well, hall either. Okay. And again, it depends on the dialect. Okay, next bit. Taggin na. Okay. Tabronerm. Taggin na. Kieta. So think of like Cade Mila Folcha. So taggin na Caidta, it's kind of the ta is hard there. So taggin na Caidta, Dini, Quilla, so like a Q, quill. Quilla law, a dhéanach rud be. So a dhéanach. Now, some of you might say a dhéana, or some of your teachers might say a dhéana. That's okay as well, all right? Madra mo chanilach. So a dhéanach rud be. So not bit, be, dom, ach me a ligan amach. So even looking at that amach there, so think of ach, amach, okay? So seo iad na difriocht agus na cosúlachtaí ag an céine. Right, so if there are any other words there, you can just show takes hugum, okay, Zoom. Send me a message, okay? But we are now going to move on to Cora, okay? So remember, Cora, so we do our Cuaig Ceist, then we are going to do our Léamh na Filiochta, which is our poem, and then it is going to go into na Ancora, right? Conversation, which is worth 120 marks, which is the biggest, right? So that's the biggest percentage of marks in the oral is your choral, then it's your Shrap Pictor, then it's your poems, then it's your Cuaig Ceist. Now, so this is 120, your strap picture is 80. So there's not much between them, okay? But you must talk for 8 minutes. So the examiner, even if you sat there and said absolutely nothing, the examiner would have to still ask you questions for 8 minutes. Okay, that's kind of like in the rule book. Okay, so 8 minutes sounds like a long time, but if you have lots to say, it really doesn't. So let's think of the topic Mahilok, okay? My family. Really nice, easy one. Most of you are going to get asked it in some shape or form. So the first question is like your generic, like, Inish Fui the Hilok. So it's like broad. Tell me about your family. But like an examiner mightn't just ask you that. They might go into more nitty gritty bits. Like, Cé Vidra har no der fortágat. Cé hé no hi an dinne sin is a clown. No, sa Shylock. So we're going to sa Shylock. An rating to Gamala de Hylock. Cain size dinner who. Okay? So all I want you to do now is I want you to fragger Nakesh than a hias. Okay? You can, you know, I would be aiming with every question you get asked, 3 to 4 lines is more than enough. Okay? And remember, when we're having a conversation with the examiner, we want to try and show off our Gaelga. So we want to try and use Nahna Cancha where we can. Use Shanuckles. Can we use the Mo Canilok if it comes up? Can we even use the Brie Sair? Right? So all these things is what we're going to be looking out for. So I'm just going to give you like 2 minutes on this and then we're going to talk about it. And then I'm going to give you like some pointers. Okay, so great stuff here. And what I would say, like Module led the high look, right? You can give as much or as little as you want in relation to this topic. They can't, or they shouldn't, should I say, because some of them just don't follow the rules. They shouldn't really like go ask you too much about your family unless you bring it up. So like I just say if you do have like load of siblings and you want to talk about them, it can be a good way of like, wasting a few minutes. Um, or like if they're maybe different parts of the world or whatever, like, that can be a topic of conversation. So, say, like, just for example, you had a sibling who lived in Australia. That then would segue into, like, have you been to Australia? Would you like to go see them? Where are they? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, if it's a case that you like, I really wouldn't want to talk about that, then you wouldn't mention that. Okay. So, just be really careful whatever you say, the examiner can pick up on and like go off on a tangent on that. So as long as you are aware of what you say, then like that's fine because you can kind of lead them down the garden path and be like, oh, like for example, with this Kane size Thinahu, if you really want to talk about sport, if that's a big part of your life, is then a sport tool may, gone down or be is, and then they might say, oh, well, Kane sport the Imrian too. That's normally what happens. Or if you say like, oh, it's then a Kjol were may, I'm very musical, that's gonna tell me as an examiner, okay, right, that's a topic that we can talk about. Because remember, like your examiner, it's awkward for them as well if you've nothing to say within 8 minutes. So anything that you have a passion for, they're going to pick up on. Okay, but this is really good, Maeve. Like that's grammatically all correct. So well done. Really, really good. Everyone else, there's one thing down here. Yeah, so Kira, just is E Ava because Ava's a girl. So E if it's a girl and A if it's a boy, and that's for everyone because that's common mistake students make. Is a mark, yeah, that's fine. Um, yeah, okay. Come on, perfect. Yeah, okay. Okay, what I wanted to say here about like Mahilok, okay? You might have seen me writing down here. So I would say every 8 out of 10 people get asked about their family, right? So what I would be saying to you here is it's a really good way of, and it's normally within the first three questions. So it's a good way of trying to bring in the Mo Look like at the beginning, that's like, oh, so like I remember a few years ago, a student used this on me and I hadn't heard it. It must have been during COVID. And I hadn't heard it like in a very long time. And I was like, that's actually so impressive. And it really stood out to me, and from the get-go, and it kind of put her on a good foot for her oral. So Derhin Gowil Cusul. Now you can pick who you're like. I would say that I am like Moam, Mayad, Magrehar, Magrefor, Mashan Woher, if even you wanted to go that far, right? Now, you don't have to use this like Mar Tosula Kena when we have the same eyes. Mar Istina Canolta May Freshen as I am also a kind person or I am also hardworking or we've the same hair colour, whatever the case may be. Mar Dare on Shannock and me hitting on Tuli Ra Iwa Don Grant, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, I know like with brothers and sisters, like it doesn't, technically that's not correct, but it's family, so it doesn't, I would accept it as an examiner. So that would just be one way of getting in your Mokani look. So Darehin, I would say that Darehin Goel. You can bring it into lots of other different topics, but this is obviously one just example that I have. So again, maybe just something to write in there. Some of you actually have it. I just see here. Is that Chloe? So well done. It's just always nice to kind of start off on a really strong foot and like it's either going to be like your family, they might just ask you to tell me about yourself, or you're probably going to mention your family anyway, or maybe like where you're from. okay? And even if you wanted to bring up your family after that, well, I live there with whoever, okay? So I live in this area with in a house with whoever, okay? So, really, really good though. I can't spot anything there, like grammatically in sentence structure, it all looks really good. Okay, so now moving on to then on Trap Picture. So, what I need you to understand here is if you don't want to learn 6 to 7 sentences for the Shra, that's fine, okay, per picture. I get a lot of kickback from that when I do say, 6 to 7 sentences kind of get to a H1. But I would definitely be aiming between 4 and 5, okay? And try and use different verbs in each um like if you're going to do 4 sentences, try and make each of the sentences start with a different verb. Okay. It just would look so much better. Okay. And like straight away I'm hearing all those different verbs. Okay. From picture a do, go G picture a she, I would like to see a nah and a cancha used in every single picture, right? And then try and use a shanuckle at some stage. Okay. You don't need to go overboard on the shanuckles. Like one is probably enough. I would say maximum two. Okay. And if you could, like if you wanted to, you could use the brie herser. Again, I would probably use it once. All right. So what we're going to do, have I split this up? No. So actually we're going to split this up. So I'm going to put the first line in the first two boxes, the second line in the second two pictures, and then you can do the third one then Lakela. Now remember, so you can actually start while I'm telling you this bit. So remember, at the end then of the Shrap Pictor, which we forget because again, like, as teachers, we're kind of rushing through everything, trying to get everything finished. So remember, you will then be asked, the examiner is going to ask you, or you ask the examiner 3 questions, and then the examiner asks you 3 questions, okay? About the Shroppic tour. So these can be really like basic. They don't need to be difficult. You can even give one word answers to get full marks, and it's 10 marks. So I mean, like it's definitely worth paying attention to. But I mean, I would be looking at your Keshtana for your Shroppic tours like maybe a week before the oral, because you can literally learn like 5 different questions that should cover all 10 Shras. All right, but again, just to remember, so we're going to do that as well today. Kin Hamanish. Okay, yeah, we're kind of coming up on time, but we should be all right. Oh, geez, I forgot we've all that to do as well. Anyway, no, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. So actually, what I might get you to do is I'm just going to get you to, so obviously, the first group do the first two pictors, second group do the second two pictors, and then we're just ask we leave these two pictors, and just focus on the question. At what 3 questions would you ask? Really good use of Conjundirok. Come on. Mahu Becky, that's very high standard of folklore. Good, Kira. So straight away, Honig. So I can see Honig, Hogue, V. Beyond the atmosphere, Duchreja. That's a nice phrase. Mahu. Good, Chloe. Intach. Even if you wanted to use, I like how you're trying to use Brashid on the atmosphere. So they felt the electric atmosphere. That's really good. You could even say Brashid on electric san atmosphere. They felt the electricity in the atmosphere if you want. But again, you don't have to do it that way. Um, but really clever use of using another verb. Well done. Good. Maeve. Well done, Ella. And you're using the Breaker Sayer in the Amshachatz at Mahu. Okay, really good. So guys, just remember as well, before no, I won't be for you because you'll have your mocks. So in the middle of February, now I had that written down somewhere and I can't think of, and anyways, I'll get the date. I will be doing mock orals with you guys, okay? So it'll be probably on a Tuesday. Um, and I'll give you a time slot and you'll like log on and you'll do a mock oral with me and then I'll like correct it and I'll give you feedback and all. So we'll do that after everyone's mocks is finished. So it'll definitely be after February midterm. Okay. So I will get back to you with that, but just so you know that that is also something that we do. Okay. Now, okay, guys, I'm going to just bugger egg. I'm going to move on because you're actually quite good at your strap pictures. So, a really good study technique, right? If you have learned like three strap pictures up until this stage, get those three straws, sit down with the pictures and be like, okay, and just start trying to rhyme it off, okay? But use that kind of technique in your head, be like verbs. They don't need to be hard. Like, the stuff you have is of a very high standard, and that's great. But remember, like, if you draw a blank, it doesn't have to be really hard stuff. Just needs to be clear, clear cut, concise, and accurate. Okay. And we want to see variety as well. I would like to maybe see a little bit more Nahna in some of your work. Okay. But again, you can kind of like add that on as we get closer to the oral. So, because I just want to move on to the ASHA, because I obviously know the orals are coming up, or sorry, the mock is coming up, and I know people are stressed about the ASHA. So, this week I've decided to have a look at Buchtanas no Dini Gondid. Now I'm going to show you like all the different titles that this one essay will cover, right? I think it's a good one that we should learn because it didn't come up last year, even though people thought it would. Okay, it's very topical with regards like cost of living, homelessness, poverty. Okay, and you can kind of tweak it for different essays. So like big stories today, Ireland today, it would probably work for an essay like that too, right? So this is my essay. And this is all the different titles that it could come up, right? So you have poverty in Ireland, the housing crisis, the country's economy, homeless people, the lack of housing, poverty. So what you need to remember is, so it'd be like you learning a Timpanocht essay, right? Remember, like Timpanocht can also be Ahra Roja. There's also another name for it now that I can't think of it that came up last year on the paper. Okay, so there's loads of different words for like the same topic, and they're going to try and use like they might say Gantanas Tehiochta, right? to like try and throw people. Because say like if you've learned Buchtanacht and that's all you know it as, if Gantan is Tihiocht came up, you'd be like, oh well, I don't know an essay on that. Even though you do, you just haven't made the connection. Okay. Now, I've kind of done a little bit different where, like, I would use this Shanachal, Níl Tinton Mar Hinton Fain, with this opening line. So it's often that this Shanachal is true with regards, sorry, it is often this Shanachal is heard, but is it true in society today? I'm not sure. So I'd use that, I've always explained here, if it's like a housing crisis essay, and then if it's just a poverty essay, I would use there's no strength without unity. And then obviously I would use Gone Doubt or Beton, Shanukal Shaw, Fear Modulation, Scale Shaw. Then obviously I wouldn't put both of these. I would choose whichever title there is, but you know that anyway from looking at the essay layout. So I have this all translated for you, so you don't need to be like worrying. We don't need to like run through it. You if you have a like a book and essay at school, like learn like learn and you find that one easy to learn that one, or if you want to make your own one, you can take bits of this, bits of the one you have at school, whatever the case may be. So like it's good to make it your own as well. Take bits out. Like what are we looking at? So we're at 743 here. So I've kind of said to you, like 600, anything under 800 is kind of what we're looking at. So like there is room for maneuver here. Like you could get rid of a bit of it if you wanted to as well. Okay. So I suppose just to go through like what is mentioned. So it's on about like how Ireland is one of the richest countries in the world. Okay. Why is there a lot of people homeless? Like that can come in under Custas Marachtola as well. The cost of living, okay, which I know a lot of people are talking about. If like even from a cost of living, if Custas Marachtola came up, you could bring in about the Course Educas as well, just like how it's so I think in my Course Educas essay we talk about like Lochstein accommodation and the price of it, okay? So things like that. So talked about the housing crisis, then there's the problem of poverty, okay? So how expensive everything is. And how the government are to blame. We need more services. Um to people who are struggling. And then, oh yeah, so look, the education system should be spreading interest and information about the poverty problem. So it really covers both poverty and the housing crisis. And I've kind of interwoven it both. So you're kind of covered like because they basically are one and the same thing, like one doesn't happen without the other kind of thing in many ways, so you will probably get away with it, or like feel free if you want to like move some paragraphs around as well. But again, if you have one at school that you've been learning, like learn that one. My essay isn't any better than any essay that you're learning at school. But sometimes we just don't get our hands on these essays, so that's why I provide them for my students. Now, and just to bring your attention, like in this, there's loads, like there's a lot of different essays. You have Dini Oiga, you have the importance of sport. I don't know what that one is. That's international problems. Like there are a lot of different ones. What's this one? I think that's Corsage because so like if you are going down, there's a Technoliac one I seen here. Oh no, that's the all-in-one essay from last year. I haven't made my all one an essay this year yet. I don't do it until near the end of the year. That's Technoliacht. Okay, so Technoliacht. So see there even like technology, social media, the media communication, the influence of the media on life today, the good and the bad associated with the media. So again, like it's just a Technoliacht essay, but it covers all these different realms. Really important to know that as well in the mock, okay? I guarantee you, whatever you learn, you can use in one of your essay titles. You just need to kind of dig around and figure it out, okay? So just to be aware of that. Don't freak out if it's not there in black and white. Like, of course, Educus isn't there in black and white. I guarantee you, you should be able to use that content in one of the titles. You should be. Now, the mocks can be a little bit up in the air. They can put up really random stuff, which is so frustrating, and it'll have no significance. But like, it depends on the mock company as well. Like, some of them are quite like, I do find some of them are very end up for being very like the real thing, and then sometimes it's so left field it like doesn't even resemble the exam paper. But we won't know that until it happens. And obviously, when I get a look at them and I'm able to like have a look at the mock papers afterwards when it's all done, like I'll be able to go through all that with you anyway. I know I'm kind of gone over, so look, I will do this. This is just to help you with the oral questions. So I'll add this into the end of next week's lesson. Um as always, guys, if you do have any questions with regards to your mocks that are coming up, please just let me know. Like, send me a message, send me an email, if you need any help on, like, just even like study plans or anything like that. All right. So no homework this week, but then we'll start some oral work next week where you'll have to send voice notes. Easiest way is probably just through Instagram. But if not, we can also, like, you can set it up on WhatsApp as well. But anyway, I'll talk to you more about that next week. So have a great first week back, and I will talk to you all next Tuesday. Slán Aggie.